So 3 months ago, I finished reading The Wheel of Time for the first time. And immediately people asked me, well, how would you rank the books? And I said, let's let things marinate for a little bit. So I told myself I wanted to take about 2 to 3 months to kind of let everything settle before I made a final decision. And the thing was, along the way, I said, okay, I'm just going to do like a countdown, 14 through 1 kind of thing. And everyone was basically like, hey, old man, catch up with the times and do a tier list. Tier lists are something that I haven't really gotten into yet, but you know what? I see a lot more popular channels than me using it, so it must work. So let's give it a shot, huh? Okay, I'm going to kick it off by saying this is not premeditated. I have no idea how this is going to go. I think I know, but we're just going to kind of figure out along the way. Now, yes, as you can see here, I have given it kind of a nice little Wheel of Time twist to it here instead of just your traditional S, A, B, C, D kind of thing. But it's the same kind of thing as you can kind of gather here, obviously. Cream of the Creator's Crop is awesome. Light, it's bloody brilliant. It's really, really good. Flaming Good means it's good. Somewhat cracked brain means there's some things that kind of held it back a little bit. So room for improvement there. Blood and Bloody Ash is what happened. I think that's pretty much self-explanatory. And Burn You, You Will Headed Fool. If you think very hard, I'm pretty sure you might know what might end up in there. But we'll see. We'll see as we go along here. So let's go ahead and get into it. I'm going to go in the order that I read them here. And that means that New Spring is going to be in between Crossroads of Twilight and Knife of Dreams. So let's start at the beginning with Eye of the World. What I said about it is that it was not the worst fantasy book I'd ever read, but there was nothing special about it. It felt very derivative of Tolkien, like a lot of fantasy novels around that time were. And I've said, in hindsight, that's the only way you were getting published back then. If you wanted to get published in high fantasy, is you needed to be Tolkien. And obviously, he did that in his own kind of way. Sure, you can kind of look at those beats. We're not like talking about Shannara here or anything. So I would get that on Flaming Good, but somewhat cracked brain. There is some times there where I'm saying, I could use a little less of this and a little more of that. And guys, in case you don't know, this is non-spoiler. Okay, if you want spoilers, I've reviewed every single Wheel of Time video on this channel, so you can find those. This is going to be non-spoiler. In the comments, though, I'd say be careful because I think that spoilers might come up from myself included. But for this, I'm going to be very, very vague. I might mention a couple events like the name of a battle or something like that, but it's going to be non-spoiler. So that's where we're kind of going there. So let's move along here to The Great Hunt. This will surprise some people. The Great Hunt is the book where Robert took such a big left turn that I saw, yeah, this is something different. There's a major event that happens in the middle of this book that just completely changes everything. And there was no Tolkien comparisons, at least by me, after this. It became its own thing, and it was something that I appreciated so much. I felt like I had never seen in fantasy before, so that's why I really loved it. So this book will always be special to me in that it made me really, it just got its hooks into me to the point where I was never going to turn back after this point. And that, guys, is why The Great Hunt is the first to go in the cream of the creator's crop. I love everything about The Great Hunt. It is brilliant. I cannot say enough about it. Next up, we have The Dragon Reborn. This one is actually kind of surprising to me when I read it because I was stunned that your book was called The Dragon Reborn. And the character that turns out to be the Dragon Reborn has such little time in it. So that actually kind of surprised me quite a bit. But we got to see more about the Aes Sedai and their ways and things like that. And what I kind of joked about it was like seeing Jordan's version of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. And it was something that I appreciated quite a bit, while you're also seeing this big, huge climax at the end that just continued the method that I saw that Jordan had done at this time, which was kind of like the Sanderlanche that we know about today, which is build, 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 and then pow, the third act just punches you in the face. And this is no different. If this had been where like a trilogy had ended, I could see if it had been written as a trilogy, that's where it could have ended, and it could have ended well. And I still say that's where the TV show could actually end if it doesn't go over well. You can watch that video there if you want. But I'm going to put this in light. It's bloody brilliant because, like I said, most of the stuff in here I love, but it doesn't have quite that big event to me that would make me put it up there at the very, very top. Moving along, The Shadow Rising. This is by far, I think, the most popular Wheel of Time book among the fandom. I think if you just took a sample size of like 1,000 Wheel of Time fans, over 900 of them will probably have The Shadow Rising as their number one book. For me, it is also very, very high. I'm not going to say it's my favorite, but it's one of those that I think over the course of time it might flip there. It has so much good development for our lead character that we needed. And this was the book where I said that The Great Hunt took a left turn and made its own thing, but this is where it just completely spread its wings. Obviously, as you saw how meaty this book is, it spread its wings, and this was the point where the series was just so flipped on its head. And there's storytelling formats in one section of this book, I think you know what I'm talking about, that was so good that I had to read it 3 times just to maybe wrap my head around it. The first time I read it, I was confused. I wasn't sure what was going on. The second time I read it, I was like, oh, I see. Third time I read it, I thought it was brilliant. But it's better than bloody brilliant. This is cream of the creator's crop. I'm still putting it behind The Great Hunt just because I think there is some nostalgia there for me, even though I know I just read it a year ago, but there is some nostalgia there for me for The Great Hunt, and I think that's why I hold it in such high value. And I think that's why a lot of wheelies will be like, it's still too high for Great Hunt. Not for me. Let's move along to The Fires of Heaven. This was where I first questioned if I was still going to go on with the series. I knew I was going to finish it because I swore to myself I wasn't going to start this without finishing it, but I kind of questioned how long it was going to take at this point. Before this, I was reading about one book a week. I think Shadow Rising took me about 2 weeks, but I was reading them just like wildfire. And Fires of Heaven was the first one, and it's all because of a certain menagerie, and I think you guys know where I'm at there, that really, really dragged this book down for me. It was saved by its final act for sure, but this one is fringe. If I could put it right here, I would, because it's got some things that just really, really bring it down for me. But that final climax, I'll make it be into the more crack brain than flaming good, but I'm going to put it there for now. Let's move along to The Lord of Chaos, or just Lord of Chaos. I always say The Lord of Chaos. It's just Lord of Chaos, right? Okay. This is another one I think that's kind of like Fires of Heaven, and that a lot of it dragged for me. And this is when a lot of people had told me before I started that the slog started between books 7 and 10. I thought it actually started in 5, but they had such big events towards the end of the book that you kind of let those things go. But I would say that this book is flaming good, way more flaming good than somewhat crack brain. I just think that there was a lot of it that was kind of sloggy. And I know that that's a very popular word, or unpopular among the fandom, rather. It's just, there was a lot of it that dragged for me. But all the stuff with, learning about Forsaken, and of course, Rand dealing with a certain thing in his head, that's good stuff. And of course, the climax is probably, arguably, the greatest moment of the series for many. Many say it never ever reach those peaks again, and I'd have to think about that. I'd have to let that marinate a little more, but I'm putting it at the top of flaming good, and like I said, there is way more flaming good than there is crack brain in that one for sure. So it's the very top of that tier. Next up we have the Crown of Swords. I keep saying V or A. I always get them backwards. A Crown of Swords. Maybe it's because I was so prepared for this to be this slog everyone talked about, and I also took like a 6-month break between Lord of Chaos and Crown of Swords because I was doing other rereads and things like that. Not just because I wanted a break after Lord of Chaos. I did, but I didn't mean for it to be 6 months. And then I got into a bunch of other series. But again, I think that maybe played into why I like this a lot more than other people. I thought that, again, the ending was really, really good. And sure, there are parts where it's like, hey, it's just characters walking. It's just characters walking. I'm like, well, you know what? I love Lord of the Rings, and that's just characters walking. So that didn't really bother me. I liked a lot of the Perrin and Rand stuff in this book. It feels like it was like the last real moment that they got for a while. And also because, we didn't get Perrin for a little bit while in the story. And this is when Perrin was still my very favorite character in the series. So I was happy to see more Perrin at this point. So this is going to surprise some people. I think I might have it on the lower end of It's Bloody Brilliant. I enjoyed most of it. The stuff with Nynaeve, the development with Nynaeve was excellent. the trials and tribulations that Matt goes through in this is just, I feel like it's underrated in a point to where I don't know why it gets lumped in with that whole slog thing, because it's very clear to me that the slog starts with the next book. That, of course, brings us to The Path of Daggers, a book that I still, to this day, don't understand why it doesn't get more crap. I feel like Crossroads of Twilight's the one that gets so ragged on, but Path of Daggers, to me, wow, it took 400 pages and I realized absolutely nothing really had happened. And that was the first moment where I said, the slog is actually real. I get it now. I do get it. And yeah, guys, this, no secret, I don't think, this is my least favorite Wheel of Time book, The Path of Daggers. If I did a reread, this would be the one that I skimmed. So yeah, this is going to be burn you. You wool-headed fool. I will never read you again. It was rough. Yes, I know that the last battle was really cool. It was, but to me it was like episode 1, The Phantom Menace. You had 2 hours of, oh my god, please shoot me in the head, and then a really cool lightsaber fight at the end. That didn't make up for everything. So that's why I put it as my lowest here. And yeah, I don't think that's surprising to anyone who's followed this channel and watched that review. Winter's Heart gets the reputation for having one of the best climaxes in the series. To me, it didn't touch the climax in Shadow Rising, or the climax of The Great Hunt, or even the climax in Lord of Chaos. So maybe I'm not going to agree on that one. And the whole thing is this book was a drag for me until that point. I did not enjoy this one at all. This was where I said, not only is the slog real, but I can see why some people tap out at this point, because it's right after The Path of Daggers. This is slow going, and this is slow going. And it's why I said, with the format that they use with the next 2 books, is I feel like that they should be flipped when they do if they get that far in the TV series. And I talked about that. But anyhow, this is not, the ending doesn't redeem it for me. It's not as bad as Path of Daggers, but I can't really say very many good things about it besides like the last 40 pages maybe. So yeah, it's just barely going to make Blood and Bloody Ashes what happened, because I didn't want to slip my wrist while reading it like Path of Daggers, but it was not enjoyable for me. And that brings me to Crossroads of Twilight, the one that everybody expected me to completely rail on when I got to it. And I actually didn't think it was as bad as people said. I understand if you had to wait years for it, it might have been really, really disappointing. And it's not a great book, but it has some really good stuff in it. I really liked the stuff from the White Tower. First time I really, really liked the politics going on in the White Tower, and I really liked the stuff with Perrin. Again, it was the first time Perrin had did something in a few books. So, yeah, this is surprising. I know that everyone tried it. Again, you take that same sample size, that poll of 1,000 Wheel of Time readers, Shadow Rising is going to be number 1, and the Crossroads of Twilight is going to be at the very, very bottom. But for me, I'm going to put it at Blood and Bloody Ashes, what happened, but at the top of that tier here. It won't let me do it, will it? There we go. See, even the tier maker disagrees with me. All right, the reason I have New Spring here is this is when I read it. You can read New Spring after about Fires of Heaven, I think. A lot of people ask that question. When should I read it? Anytime in between there, but definitely not before there. I read it here, and I thought it was the best because it gave some conjecture to what happens in Knife of Dreams. So in hindsight, that was the perfect way to do it, at least for me. So there's where I put it. The book itself, I was just happy to see more Lan, who I felt like had kind of taken a back seat in the series at this point, and of course seeing Moraine. So I was just over the moon to get. This was like the Wizard in Glass. Wizard in Glass is Dark Tower, where you got like the 4th book, you get all the backstory of a main character, and I feel like this is where you get all that backstory about how these 2 characters met, and it lived up to the hype for me. I really enjoyed it. This is going to surprise some people here, but I have light. It was bloody brilliant. I enjoyed it. It might be just because I had just read 3 kind of slowish books, and it had the action that I was looking for. It had all the stuff with Lan that I had been waiting for. And it was short. There was no real there is the, Jordan loves to talk about his dresses. There was that in it, but I still, in a reread, I think that this would be one I really looked forward to because I had a good time with the mystery involved. I had a great time with the action and just seeing these two characters, I won't say necessarily into prime, but like Moraine more coming of age and Lan in his prime. It was fun. It lived up to it for me, for sure. And that leads us to Knife of Dreams, the last Robert Jordan book. The last few books before this, I had said I felt like the prologues in these had started to become a chore, where they just felt like, hey, this is like the weekly news of what's going on around Randland right now, and really just didn't really have anything hugely exciting or new to tell me. This one, the prologue starts like a freaking freight train, and right away you can tell, okay, this guy found his energy. It starts with a just completely renewed energy for the series, and it just ramps up that last arc. That's why everybody tells you if you just get to Knife of Dreams, the rest of the series is a blast. And I'm here to confirm that, because Knife of Dreams is bloody brilliant, and it goes to the top of its bloody brilliant. A terrific book and a wonderful send-off to Mr. Jordan. I loved it. I loved it. Even more in hindsight. I'm liking it even more in hindsight as time has went by here. And I don't know if I would have ranked it this high when I first did it, but it's for sure at the top of that list, of that tier right there. Then we move on to the Towers of Midnight. And again, D or A or just Towers of Midnight. I'll get this someday for sure. Towers of Midnight. This one was, if you watch that review, you kind of know where I was on the things that kind of let me down, the things I really, really did enjoy, but they were few and far between. But the big moments were good enough for me to say it is at least middle of the road, but still probably a little better than, I'd say, between Eye of the World, but not better than Lord of Chaos. I really, really liked Perrin's level up, let's call it that. Didn't care for a certain legal battle in this book. I didn't feel like the penultimate book in the series should have been a legal battle. And you know what? I got them out of order here. I forgot Gathering Storm. Oh, well. The penultimate book in the series, I didn't feel like you should have spent that much time on something that felt kind of like a side plot. It felt like it was kind of shoehorned in to make the book be, longer. But, the event that we're going for in this book happened, and I felt like it was worth the wait, and it was a good payoff, even though I did want more. So that's why I can't put any higher than that. The Gathering Storm now, doing this a little out of order, is one that, upon reading it, I was unsure how I felt. I never felt the real jarring change with Sanderson writing it that a lot of people said. Like, I told people, if you had just gave me all these in like a spiral notebook, and they were handwritten, and I didn't know who the author was, and I was just reading them, I don't think I would have necessarily known a change, except I'd have been like, why is Matt acting like he's just like super hammered? And I think everyone has agreed that Sanderson himself even has said as he struggled writing Matt. And I think it's very obvious in The Gathering Storm. I do think he recovers, but I don't find a lot of fat on this book. I felt like the Towers of Midnight and Gathering Storm are kind of like a two-part story, and I felt like The Gathering Storm was the one that got all of the meat. And the Towers of Midnight kind of got some of the fat. That's how I feel about it. As time has went by, this one has really, really grown up the list here to a top 5 Wheel of Time book for me, and that's why it goes to the top of the Light, It's Bloody Brilliant segment for me. So many satisfying resolutions on some things. Again, going on spoiler here. Watch those spoiler reviews, guys. You'll understand if you've read these why I'm putting them where I am putting them. And that brings us to the last Wheel of Time book, A Memory of Light. Book that I think very much met the hype for me. If you were waiting for action, this was the book to get it in. You definitely got the action, and you definitely got a lot of the payoffs. I have my gripes. A battle that big, I do feel like that there should have been more casualties maybe. And I do have some other things I didn't feel was maybe earned or something, and that's what got me some thumbs downs in those review video. But this is a wonderful book, a very beautiful ending to a series that honestly, if you're asking me, I feel like this gave the series a better ending than we deserved when the original author died. I think that's not unfair to say. It's definitely. Most series, I feel like whoever finishes A Song of Ice and Fire, because we all know George isn't finishing it, I don't feel like we'll feel as happy as Wheel of Time fans probably did with what Brandon did with A Memory of Light. I think it's a fantastic ending, and it's not quite cream of the crop, but it's close. I would probably put it right about here. And there we go, guys. My very first tier list. I feel all like 21st century or something. So I had planned on doing a rankings list like this before, like I said, like I did with my first law rankings, where I just kind of just counted down from the number. And apparently that is going the way of the dodo. And, you know, I don't want to be like my mom, who was afraid to get a TiVo because she liked her VCR for until like 2012. I don't want to be like that. If this is what everybody is kind of moving to, hey, why not? Let's give it a try. So I can see why people like it. It's fun. You can just kind of, if you're like me, you can just ramble at will. You know, it's a good thing to do. And I think it's interesting for a conversation setter. And there it is, guys. I hope that wasn't too painful for you. That's my rankings. I want to know your rankings. Why don't you go ahead and drop in the comments below. Let me know how you would rank these books. And of course, as always, let me know how wrong my tier rankings are, because that is why we're here, guys, to talk about these things. So peace, favor your sword, and I'll talk to you there.